How's it going, everyone? It's Tim Zanoni here with the Shadow Consciousness Podcast. Today we have Danny Morley on, and we're going to be talking a little bit about isolation and the avenues that I've been navigating these last few months with it. And yeah, Danny, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Tim, for having me on here. I'm friends with Tim through his partner. We met through I work with his partner and as a coach, and she introduced me to her lovely boyfriend, which is awesome that I got the pleasure to meet Tim that way. And so yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I am a mystical life coach at MSU, Masters of Self University, and I found kind of personal development first in around 2015 when I started my master's degree in leadership. And that degree really had a strong focus on the more authentic you can be within yourself, the better leader that you'll be. And I was in hospitality at the time, and I could start to see a potential avenue of my life kind of opening up and like going down the managerial route in luxury hospitality and leadership. And the more work I did on myself, the more I realized, oh, there's a lot here to unpack. This is a whole like field that you could just spend your whole entire life kind of studying and being a student of. And then a few years later, I fell into my own struggles with mental health, depression, severe anxiety, all the works. And that quest for bettering myself and personal development turned more into a quest for understanding what is it, who am I, what is consciousness, and how can I heal from the pain and the suffering that I was in. And found my mentor, Rachel Fiore, and she's been really helping me over the past couple of years, and I've been learning her work, and now I offer and coach that to people too. So that's just a little bit about me.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Yeah, the work that Danny and my partner Maddie do is about the deepest form of spiritual growth that you can get to. It's the point that we all strive for. Yeah, and it's the hard work. It's the stuff that takes a lot of dedication and time and time alone, which is
Yeah.
what we're going to dive into, because I've been really struggling lately with isolating myself when things have been getting hard, and finding a balance between the pros and cons of isolation. You'll hear me preaching a lot of times of how sitting with yourself and digging into the pain and your past traumas is where the growth happens. But I've noticed in myself that you can get lost in it, and you almost lose your sense of community when you do that. If you get too engulfed with just being with yourself, and it can turn into times where you're not only alone with the pain that's coming up, but sometimes you just start forgetting about the pain and you're just alone. You're and what I've noticed in myself is that when the times have been getting really tough with what have you, finances, or getting little sleep because of the newborn, not getting to go to the gym when I want to, all the things, I start to really just pull away from everyone, including myself. I pull away from my men's groups. I pull away from my partner, Maddie, and I start doom scrolling on my cell phone. I start watching more TV. I'm more lethargic, tired. And I know a lot of people can relate to this. It's very common for especially men to just have that as their regular part of their life. They do their work, they come home, they eat their dinner, and then they scroll on their phone and watch TV until it's bedtime, and then they rinse and repeat. And I don't think a lot of people look into this, because what's behind that is a lot of worries and pain and suffering that it's hard to even want to admit or invite others in. And we form this like unending habit of just constantly just wanting to be alone. And there's so many ways we can go about this on the reasons behind this, but I just want to hear your perspective on this, Danny.
Yeah, well, I wrote down so many things that we could go into. There's so much that came up there from that beautiful intro. So I guess let's start to talk about and unpack the difference between being lonely and being in solitude. Because if we're talking about isolation, we can isolate ourselves and be in complete solitude and really enjoy the isolation. And it can be a healthy time for us to recharge. Isolation could look like, let me go and walk my dog and take an hour out the way from my regular schedule, or from being in the energy of my partnership, or from just being in the house all day. Let me just take a break from that. That's a form of isolating myself. And when we're doing it from that energy of, oh, I want to do this because I want a break, I just need to isolate myself. Or maybe we're triggered, like we're annoyed at our partner, or someone else has pissed us off for some reason, or we're having a difficulty for whatever reason, and we need to be on our own to really process what's going on. Now, that can be really healing. That can be amazing to take that time and have that solitude if we're comfortable with being alone. But then what happens when we isolate ourselves, and instead of it being an enjoyable process, it feels like loneliness, and there's all the pain. And then another experience that I'd have, and I'll let you decide which avenue we want to go down maybe first, is I felt lonely my whole life. And I could be in a room full of people and still feel lonely, still feel like disconnected from everyone and myself. And that's why the work that I teach, and we teach at Master of Self University, it's all about self. It's all about connecting with yourself at the deepest level, so that it doesn't matter what situation you're in, whether you are alone or you're with people. If you're experiencing loneliness, that's the thing that we want to work on healing. Because isolation, every human should be able to spend time alone and like enjoy themselves and whatnot. But it's hard when we don't, and that's what we've got to heal and face.
Yeah. What comes up for me, and this is the only reason it does, is because this is what I've been dealing with the last few weeks, is the stress of life that pushes me to isolation. Because deep down, I feel in myself that I don't want to burden anyone with these worries that I have in my life, including my partner. I also feel like I should be the one to hold all of that weight. I don't know if it's been something that was taught to me at such a young age of what a man should be. And I think it's mostly subconscious, especially now, because I want to consciously be available to my partner and share all my worries. I know that that's what she wants. And I think that's what any partner wants in a relationship. But I have these programs that are already built up from deep down that I don't even think about sharing these things, because it's just always been that way of just holding on to the problems of life. And that isolation is what I've been dealing with, and what I think a lot of men deal with. I think it's seen as like someone being whiny or less than, because they're sharing the stuff that they're going through in life that's really like struggles for them, whether it's things around sex or money or what have you, the things that are like commonly associated with your everyday life. Bringing those struggles to friend groups or your partner is just not looked at. It's just constantly just held. And that's what I've been really digging with, and that's where that isolation has been for me.
And so the isolation has been from your partner, or just the feeling of having to hold everything in?
Yeah, the feeling of having to hold everything in, which then in turn isolates me from everyone around me.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it.
Like the
Yeah.
more I hold things in, the more I like slowly isolate more and more and more. It just like grows on itself until you feel like you're the only one in this world, and that
And
you're
the
the
only,
only one that can relate.
and the only one like that has ever felt this way.
Right.
Like I remember when I was really in like the throes of depression, like I read this book called Reasons to Stay Alive. It was by Matt Haig. And I read that and it felt like the first time that someone else was like, oh, yeah, me too. And I was like, oh,
Right.
damn, like I've been suffering all this time, holding all this stuff in.
Mhm.
Felt like I didn't know what the fuck was going on and that no one would be able to understand. And then I read this book and it was this beautiful like monologue of his journey with like mental health, and it finally gave me that acceptance piece of like, oh, I'm not the only one that feels
Right.
like this. I'm not going crazy. But the program that it turned into for me was whenever I'm in a partnership, I'm the oversharer, so I'm the opposite of you.
Right.
I like having that partnership, that container to be able to share. Like that's all that I want is like to work through it. So I'm just like talking about it too much. But where it shows up a lot with me is with other men. Is I in groups, I'm very open and do share, but I find myself in a very different energy because I really want their validation, approval. I really want to feel like one of the boys.
Mm.
And because I've always been such a sensitive person, I've always felt like my emotions are different to most men. And I can tell by the way that most men hold everything in, and I kind of let it
Right.
come out a little more. I was like, oh, maybe I'm different for whatever reason. And so in that sense, I totally feel you on the isolation because I just felt different. I was like, I don't fit in with all these people. And that being the opposite, being too open is what it felt like, was very isolating for me because I didn't feel like I was the same as everyone else. And now that I'm healing that, and I'm still in the process of it, but I'm starting to see that like that has nothing to do with actually feeling like I fit in, and it
Mm.
all comes back to the relationship that I have in my own self,
Right.
which
Yeah,
blocks.
that's crazy interesting because I think you're going to be an outlier for how a lot of guys are with, communication skills. Um,
Just today, right? I'm hanging around with one of my friends, and there's something that he's doing that is annoying me. And if this was my partner, I would share this immediately with them.
right.
And there's this reluctancy of being like, hey, bro, like this is triggering me. Like, can we
Mm.
talk about it? And I have mentioned we have had this conversation in the past, and it's the same thing occurring again. But there's still this reluctancy to have that conversation, I think, because there's a deeper part of me that's afraid to lose the friendship.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, through your isolation experiences, what you're experiencing, what is it that you're afraid of?
I feel like I'm afraid that Maddie's gonna stress, that my partner, my person in my that I'm in a relationship with, that they're gonna stress too with me. And I don't want them to have to stress. Like, I feel like there's no point of two people having to hold that same weight. Well, like, why can't I just do that?
And where do you think like that originally, that like that part of you? I mean, we've already
Mm.
used it to program that like program
Right.
of like holding it in, like,
Mhm.
and not wanting her to have to stress about what you're stressing about. Maybe where do you think that like originated?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I sat with myself, was it 2 days ago on this, and it it came back to when I was a child. I was seen as a responsible one. I'm one of 6 kids. I have 5 other siblings, and I was always very sensitive. I could pick up on things that were going on in our household. I could tell that our money wasn't there. My dad was raising all 6 of us with no help from my mom, and I could tell he had, like, no money. He's a meat cutter, and so he was, like, on a butcher's salary worked at Albertsons, and he was raising 6 kids, and I could tell the energy behind money, and I could see the stress in his eyes every single day he got back from work, even though he just wanted to be there and love us. And I never felt comfortable bringing anything of troubles that were going on in my life to him, because I felt it. Like, he already had so much going on. There's no way he needed um, my schoolboy problems of what have you. If I was getting bullied, which happened, like, I got bullied one year. Um, I didn't know how to deal with that. Even when I was growing up and was going through sex changes and just, like, starting to explore my sexuality more, I never felt comfortable asking questions because it just seemed like an extra burden. Like, I'm like, okay, now he's gonna have to deal with me, kind of thing, and my problems when he already has enough shit of his own. And so it's sad, because I feel like he would have provided that support for me, but I always felt that it wasn't welcomed, or it just not even welcome. Like, that's the thing, because I knew he was so open. Like, I knew he would welcome it. It was the worry about just being too much.
Is that something that he did? Did he like hold in all his kind of stress too, and not?
Yeah, and then it would come out on us when we didn't clean up the kitchen after dinner. We didn't know if he was gonna scream at the top of his lungs, or if we were gonna be good for this evening, kind of thing. So yeah, it was always bottled up, and then there would be outbursts that were, but you knew it never had to do with us. At the time, we didn't know that, but now looking at it, I
Yeah.
knew it never had to do with us. I knew it was because of all the shit he was going through. But
Try telling that to a kid. It's like,
right, exactly.
when we're kids, we don't conceptually understand things in the same way that we do now. And it's so easy to dismiss that part of us that feels like they can't share. With
Right.
my own dad, it was he he was very disengaged. He was very loving in certain ways, but he was very kind of like just doing his own thing. And I never felt like there was a space to even. He would ask me if I was okay, and it was kind of like, "You're okay? Yep. Okay. Cool."
Mm,
That was it. Surface level, no coming down to like the depths. And even when I was kind of older, it was the same thing when I was really depressed. And I'll never forget him. Like, and it's just the capacity that he could show up to. He was saying like, "You're okay, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And
mm,
inside, I'm like, "Yeah, I
right.
kind of want to commit suicide because the pain that I'm in right now is overwhelming." Um, but that was just where he was at. That was the capacity of which he could show up for. And that's not something that I'm not saying this out of blame, just out of truth of like, yeah, this is kind of like what I felt. And what it's led to now is like, it's the same things. Oh, I have to find where I'm looking for that. In other people and figure out within how can I give that to myself, which allows for that healthy communication between me and whoever I'm projecting this need to share on, which is what I do with my partner all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some things I wrote down when I was with myself too, that, like, that isolating ourselves is not only harmful to ourselves, but it's also harmful to the people that really love us, because it's taken away the chances for them to show us love and for them to be connected with us. We're almost like robbing them of their chance to connect with us too. When you just, like, hold it in.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're holding it all in, then there's no authentic opening and sharing because
Mhm.
everything's closed. Your heart's closed. You're in that state of like worry and fear and stress,
Right.
and it's not the most. Um, it's not that we want to connect through that energy. We want to connect, obviously, through the energy of openness and authenticity, but allowing that, allowing ourselves to be authentic and vulnerable in whatever emotion we're experiencing allows for that authenticity, for the connection to happen. Because if
Right.
we just share the good things, like that's only one part of life.
Yeah.
That's only a small window of ourselves that we're giving away or that someone is seeing. And when we're
Yeah.
able to share it all, that's when the true connection can really be formed.
Yeah, definitely. And it's mainly those points in life where you feel like you're alone into, once you get like open and you can share the stuff that is really like on your heart and that's been really painful for you in these what have you years or months, it invites for that openness in other men too, and they open up and they share similar stories or things that they're going through that yeah, and it just you touched on this and it comes to feeling like you're alone in it, like you're the only one going through these problems. I wrote
Yeah,
down some statistics on it. Social isolation increases your risk of premature death by 29%. Lacking social connections is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
damn.
It bumps up heart disease risk by 29% and stroke risk by 32%. And it also increases respiratory illnesses. And when I saw that, I'm pretty analytical, which I feel like a lot of our guys are. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I thought there's no way. And the amount of people the amount of times it's not talked about too. We talk about obesity problems and diabetes and like depression, but isolation is like one of the leading percentages. And then in Americans, I think it's 61% of Americans feel isolated. And those are usually that's usually like the gateway to getting into all those like the depression, the diabetes, and what have you. It's yeah, it's sad because it's really home for me too because my older brother, I've seen the struggle that he's had to go through because of what isolation did to him and where it put him in his mind.
And what kind of isolation did he go through?
Um, so he moved to a different state and was pretty much alone and just worked, but he never really talked to any of us, which is very rare because me and my siblings were all very close. Yeah, he just never reached out, and it led to depression and um, yeah, just things that were a lot worse just because he just never talked and he felt like he was alone.
Yeah,
When he finally moved back, you could see him getting ripped back out of his like hardened shell of just sadness and like aloneness, and he was just so in his mind that he
yeah,
didn't know where to go with it. But then you could see him being back in his like in the social gatherings and around people that love him and like pushing him out of those areas, and he was able to like become to his true self again. And I want to I always want to preach that like you said and like you brought up in the beginning of this, that there's a difference between isolating and healing and isolation and what's the word I'm looking for?
solitude.
Yeah, solitude versus the isolation where you're just in the pain and not seeing the light, essentially.
And it's so easy without the right tools to just be in the suffering of isolation, to be alone and to feel lonely and to be stuck in that. because I was there for so long. And recently I took a trip where I just wanted that isolation. I wanted to be alone. And I got a van. So I took the van away for a couple nights. And it was really this call of like, I need to go be alone. But then it was almost this like independence energy where I was like, I have to be okay with going and spending time alone. And it was almost this energy of like, I was forcing myself to go sit and be alone and be okay with it. Whenever I come from this energy of forcing, it never actually allows for the beauty to flow through. And I realized that after about 24 hours, that the reason I had come on this trip, it was almost to prove myself I can be okay by being alone instead of just being okay. And there was a big shift that occurred while I was on that trip, and I'm glad that I took it, because I was okay with being alone. But as soon as I was okay with that, I was like, why am I forcing myself to be away from my partner right now just so I can prove to myself that I can handle a few days alone? And so I only was away for, I think, 2 nights. I didn't like push the trip any longer because I got everything that I needed to get. And it was always, when our soul is nudging us to go and take these trips, like I went and spent a couple weeks in the Peruvian jungle and did ayahuasca and did all these different things where I could feel the nudge, and I hiked the Colorado Trail where I spent a lot of time alone. That's great. And spend that time and be comfortable with being alone. But if you find yourself forcing yourself to be alone just to process or just to be okay with being alone, that isn't the right energy that helped me get into it. It was actually opening myself. And then, like you mentioned earlier, like when times get hard, it's really easy to be alone when you're happy and great, right?
Exactly.
And you're open and like you're moving through life and you're like, fuck yeah, I love to travel. I'm traveling. I'm backpacking. Like I did a lot of this, backpacking through Asia, backpacking in South America. There's all these things to do and things to see. But when the shit hits the fan and your mental and emotional health starts to spiral down the toilet, how do you show up to yourself then when you're alone? And if you can't find that openness and happiness within when you're with people, it's going to be really difficult to find it alone as well. And that's where the deep inner work comes in. And there's no black and white, right or wrong answer. It's always like what you need in that moment. So something like isolation can be crucial to show you where you're not free, or to put you in a place where you need to learn to maybe be comfortable with it. But it's never like, oh, I must isolate and this is the answer. In fact, the area that I'm in now is I'm trying not to isolate myself when I'm triggered, and I'm trying to work through the pain as I'm in the situation. Whereas before I would have seeked out isolation. And now I'm like, okay, well, I can go isolate and I know I'll be fine, but wouldn't it be really powerful if I could handle the anger that I'm triggered in right now whilst I'm still with my dog? Like still my dog triggers my anger all the time because he frustrates me. I can't control him and he's nuts. And I can hear him. There's part of me that wants to go check on him because I can hear him making a noise outside. But like, do I have to isolate myself from him to process my emotions, or can I actually stay with him or whatever the trigger is and still be present and work through that pain at the same time? And that's kind of like where I'm at. So I'm not looking for isolation as much as I used to be seeking it.
Yeah. I mean, that's fucking tough. Having to do it on hand and also recognize that it's coming up. I think you're very well versed in recognizing triggers when they come up, but the steps of recognizing and then going back into them later is very common, but having to do it on hand, that's the next
that's the next level.
That's the next level. Yeah.
Then there's the level after that is where it just happens automatically. And
Yeah.
I'm not there. Like, I am not there. But, you know, this whole process, what we're talking about, it's all an opening of you know,
Mhm.
our heart. And the more you open over time, I think there becomes a point where you can walk around in openness where stuff is just being triggered and flowing through. But yeah, it starts with first that self-awareness piece of
Mhm.
recognizing, shit, I am not feeling, you know, I'm feeling either disconnected or I'm feeling lonely, and let me work on that. And maybe that takes separating myself and spending a night. I remember my first backpacking trip solo. I was scared shitless, and I found very quickly I did not like being isolated alone.
Mhm.
And I had to get comfortable with that. I'm still not massively comfortable with being in the mountains around bears and mountain lions on my own, but definitely grown a lot in that way just through exposure. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've had any of those experiences.
Yeah, I mean, um, yeah, nature's on a that's like second nature to me. So, just with hunting, I've been um, hunting by myself all the time, and I've had wolves like right on me.
Wow.
Been right by mountain lions. Yeah, it's a whole nother level of fear. Um, but yeah, I don't feel like I mean, it would be nice to have somebody there,
Yeah.
but I also enjoy that salt. That's the isolation that I enjoy is there. It's it's the ones where I feel like I'm just adding to somebody else's problems. That's the ones where it's a lot to do. Just bringing it up to my men's group took a lot of courage for me, which would seem for somebody that can share and is very open, wouldn't seem like that big of a step. But for me, it was a really big step because I knew it was it took a lot of energy for them to receive it and also be supportive. And
Mm.
a lot of times I don't want people to feel like they need to just take almost a time out of their day to just hear me out. And I think that's probably 80% of men in this world is they don't want to seem like a problem, and they don't want to add to any more problems, and they just want to hold it all.
Yeah. And I feel like we've been brought up in a society that really values this tough guy.
Right.
Like a man is supposed to wear the whole family on his shoulders and be okay no matter what, and
Yeah.
not express emotion and hold it in. Like that is what we're shown through the media and through just our ancestors that have been before us. And I feel like through, you know, conversations like this and men like yourself who are opening up and sharing vulnerably about what it is that we're moving through as guys, like that's what opens the door to allow this stuff to start to move. And I totally get what you mean in terms of like sharing, because as you were talking, what it reminded me of is there's certain things that I've got no problem sharing about.
Hmm.
And then there's other things which I guess I haven't fully worked through yet, which I don't want to talk about, parts of my shadow self that I still am not at a place of acceptance with and comfortable with fully seeing. And those parts for me are hard to talk about. Just a couple of days ago, I was expressing how in this teaching position that I'm, this role that I'm in at my organization, it did inflate my ego. Um, and I'd been really working hard at trying to bring that way of humility in to bring it back down. But it was like I could feel and see it, and I knew the more that I've worked on it, I can look back and be like, damn, I can feel when that ego was inflated. And sharing that with my peers, with my other the other people that I work with, that hey, this part of me, this shadow aspect of me showed up and has made me, you know, judge other people and made me feel entitled and superior. That was really difficult for me, because I was, of course, worried that they were going to judge me for thinking that I was this the same thing. That's how it works. I'm worried because I'm doing that very thing. I'm worried that other people are going to judge me because inside I'm judging them, and that's why I worry. And once we heal that judgment and that superiority and that entitlement within ourselves, we don't fear that it's going to happen, like that another person is going to do that to me. So I totally relate. I know exactly what you mean about how scary it can be to be vulnerable and be honest about who you are, because now you're exposing yourself, and you're exposing yourself to be hurt by somebody that you're showing, you're showing up authentically, and you're trusting them in that moment, with something that they could potentially turn around and hurt you with. Has that happened to you before, like when you were younger at all? Have you ever shared something vulnerably and someone's used it against you?
I mean, I'm sure there's been countless times. The first thing that comes up for me is my mom, just because we were always seeking love from her, but she was never had the capacity to give it back. We always seemed like a burden to her, and so I can't think of an exact moment, but I know there's handfuls of times where I would be seeking that love, and my heart was definitely open, and she wasn't capable of giving it because she was doing her own shit, and
Yeah.
at the time, I didn't know why. I just
You don't get it as a kid.
yeah, yeah, and it's what's the saddest part is what I think about is how um I lack so much openness with my partner. I can share some things with my men's group that I just can't with my partner, and it's not fair. And I feel like so many men do this, which is crazy because your partner is supposed to be the person that loves you the most and is going to give you the most support. And most of the time that is the case, They are that's the reason you're with them, is they have so much love for you, but they also are the closest things to where you grew up with love, and they're the closest things to your parents. And so every time I reflect on the issues that I had with my mother and being able to show her love and trying to get it back, it's it's my partner is the mirror to my mother, and just like she's the mirror to my father too. The things that I've developed programs and wounds and these shadow sides of myself have all been reflections of them, and now they're showing up in the face of my partner. And so when I see her, I can consciously know that she wants all of me, but there's so much inside of me that
Mm.
is resisting it, that is resisting showing her the struggles that I'm going through or the fears that I have. And it's a constant battle, and it's always there. And
Because it's
it's
scary.
yeah, because
Yeah.
even though I can say to myself that she's there and she won't leave me, like I can't just trick my nervous system like that.
No.
It doesn't fucking know that.
You can say with your mind, I'm safe.
Right.
You can say all that stuff from a
Hmm.
conceptual level, around 30 years old, you can understand that. But if there's a part of you, an inner child, that feels unsafe or feels scared to share or is worried about opening up because they've been hurt in the past, or they've just learned to just consistently close, those few thoughts that you had, it's like pissing in the wind.
Yeah.
It's like trying to light a match underwater. It's never gonna happen until you go in and do that deep inner
Hmm.
healing, because that the force of that energy that's hidden within all of us, it's way stronger than we do have a lot of power in our minds and so much power from
Right.
thinking, right? um but it doesn't the magnitude of energy doesn't compare to
Right.
a part of us that is in fear. And what I found from my journey is through my partnership is being able to work through those fears by, my partner really struggles to share. She's closed in that way. And it's been really wonderful to, shine that mirror and be that person for her to say like, hey, here's the space for you to show up and talk about your emotions a little more and what you're feeling right now. And to watch her grow over the last year, that's how long we've been together, like has been just amazing. And I'm looking forward to all the years after this that we'll continue to do this work together. But it does take that. It does take finding a partner that is willing to shine that light, because it's easy to coast. It's easy to be in a partnership where no one's calling each other out.
Right.
But it's difficult to be in a partnership that you really go, hey, I'm noticing that you're holding things in right now. And it would probably be in both of our benefit if you was to maybe open up about what it is that's troubling you and provide that space for her to really open. And now I'm finding that, when I ask her, how are you feeling? And before she always said, she said this morning, she goes, and I'm like, I don't know. You tell me how you're feeling. Depression. And I'm like, so what's that like? And then it starts to come out a little bit more. And, that can be all it takes.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Can you tell the viewers, why would you consciously choose something that's more difficult to do if you can just easily coast through life with your partner, not bring up shit, come home from work and binge watch a couple TV shows and doom scroll right before in bed and then do it all over again? Why would you consciously make the decision to turn all that shit off, look into each other's eyes, and really describe what's going on?
So many answers you could give to this. The first one is the life you described sounded like a slave. Sounded like a slave to the machine.
Right.
We've all bought into this whole paradigm of how we're supposed to live our life, which is just consumption. Consume, go to work, put the blinders on, don't talk about anything we're actually experiencing, do my job, come home, eat a meal, watch something on TV, be programmed by the TV, go on my phone, be programmed by the phone, go to bed, rinse and repeat. You're missing out on all of the sweetness of life. And when we choose, because it is always a choice, when we choose to go into ourselves and do this work, do this inner work, find the parts of our shadow that are still there, vibrating at a density of something around fear or lack or scarcity or powerlessness, and we start to heal that, we start to open ourselves up to the joy and the wonder and the awe of life. When you were a kid, I'm sure you remember a time when you went to a theme park and you were like, oh my God, right? That awe that you would feel, the amazement. We can feel that every day. We just get so lost in the programming that the powers that be have done so well into brainwashing, thinking that this is how we should live. You watch the media, you fall into fear, you just get brainwashed. And the more that we open ourselves up to what's truly there, we're shifting out of that fear and we're stepping more into love and abundance. And from that place, that's where I want to live my life. The moments I touch that vibration of love, of peace, of joy, that feels good to me. It's like my soul saying, I want more of that. That chocolate cake right there, I want more of that. That kale, I'm good. I don't want that. This tastes better than this. And so through like tasting the joys of life, the sweetness of life, and not from an external place, from an internal place, it transforms everything. And it's worth the journey. So heading towards difficult things is always a great thing, as long as it's coming from this energy of we're trying to better ourselves. Again, it comes back to this force versus openness, which is there's a book by David Hawkins called power versus force. We can use these same words: power, openness, love. Well, that's on one side, and we've got force on the other. And if we're forcing ourselves to do hard things, that's kind of sadistic. We're just torturing ourselves. You look at David Goggins. This is an extreme example of somebody who's just punishing themselves relentlessly because of who they are. If he was, and listen, he's done some amazing things. And I think through his experiences of really going into the pain cave, he's probably had certain moments of enlightenment through it. But those moments should be the key, is to say, hey, I don't need to choose to punish myself over and over and over again. I don't need to do that to me. I'm going to choose to be in the energy of power, of openness and love. And to do that, it means we have to face the hard parts of ourselves. And that is difficult. If it was easy, this Earth school would be, everyone would be graduated, right? Yeah. Everyone would be like, it's fucking easy. No, it's hard for a reason. Most things in life that are really good, they're difficult. They're difficult. Yeah. It's hard to win an Olympic gold medal. And you have to get the training right. You have to get the coaching right, probably the nutrition right. You have to get all these pieces right. And the reward is fantastic. And it's the same thing with our journey through life. Like, yes, it's very difficult, but the reward of living a life emotionally and mentally free, we can't like conceive and comprehend what that would be like, because the last time we were like that, we were in the womb. Right. Even in the womb, we're connecting with our parents' energy. And if there's any stress, any worry, any anxiety, whatever that parent was going through, we're still absorbing that then. So, I mean, even that moment, I'm sure you can touch upon this, when the child first comes out and they're just full of awe and wonder, that's what's available to us all the time. And what was it like seeing Aya when she first came out, like when she was just this pure being?
Yeah, time stopped. It really did. It brought a whole new level of presence that I've never experienced before. I would like to think it probably is partially because of her soul and what she was emanating towards me, but it was also mine. It's like something clicked in me about what the importance here in life is, and it's really just the moments, the singular moments we have. As the minutes start clicking, you only have that minute, and I don't think I can honestly recall where I wasn't thinking about something for weeks. For those first few weeks, I don't think I thought about anything that was in the past or anything that's about to happen.
You were just in it.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah. I've been through a lot of healing with myself, and not near as much as I need to get to, but in those moments where I was alchemizing my pain with the love that I had and the presence that it brought me, and it brought me the meaning of life, but it was that amplified, and I didn't think that was possible. It was and I don't want to say like she was my meaning. It was the moment of that was the meaning of life. And that's what she brought to me.
And now you get to go on the journey of finding that within yourself.
Right.
She's just opened a whole doorway, being like, this is what's possible, Tim.
Right.
What a gift.
Yeah. And you lose all of those chances when you pull yourself away by whatever have you. Even just thinking about things that aren't in front of you at the moment is being away. Just like looking at your phone is being away, and thinking about stuff that hasn't even came to fruition yet. That's all being away, and it's taking time. Like money comes and goes, but we only have the only thing that is gonna be gone is our time. And
Because there's only now.
right.
And is it really gone? Is it ever really there?
Not in the ground scheme of things.
I mean, you can get super lost in those like philosophical
Right.
questions.
Yeah.
When I was really struggling with depression, these were the questions that I would be asking constantly to myself. And it was like, what is reality? Does time exist? All of them. And
Right.
I would go to, I'd go out with my friends at the time to like a bar, and everyone would be talking about like how many inches of powder was on the mountain, and all I wanted to be like, bro, does time exist?
We're talking about the next ski day, but
Yeah.
what are we?
I'm like, yeah. What's consciousness? What is a human being? What does it mean to be a human? I didn't get much feedback
Not at the bar.
back in 2019 in Colorado, but yeah, I'm slowly but surely finding those answers, and in those moments, that moment that you described, with Aya, just being so present and just seeing the is like that I am. That's what it's all about, and that answers all of the questions, because in that place it's like, oh, I don't need to figure anything out, it's just right here.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I guess that's like answered my questions to it all. Anytime I am struggling or anytime I am just fucking so stressed and just sit with that stress of, am I going to have enough money for this month's bills, or do I have to do these chores before the fucking grass gets too long and my lawnmower is going to clog up? That's the shit that I think about. And
How often, because I'm struggling with the finances stuff right now, and I'd like, how often do you think about like the financial stress?
I thought about it a lot more than um, I went through a phase in my life where I was always thinking about finances. And then when I started healing, I actually started I don't know if I could call it manifesting, but I just felt so comfortable in the abundance that I had that it actually started coming to me more.
Mm.
And I thought, I was like, oh fuck yeah, I beat the challenge of the blocks I have around money, because now it's all flowing in. But no, recently it's been a struggle, and um, I don't think I've had an answer to it. It's mainly just been that right now I'm okay, and that's why when you asked me about Aya and how we've established like what the meaning of life is these moments, that's when I start being like, okay, well, in this moment, I am fine. And I don't want to say that I don't want you to be, what's the word? Not responsible, or um, I'm forgetting and just kind of just being like, all right, well, I have no responsibilities then, because I'll just figure it out as they come. Obviously, you need to do your due diligence, but
That's where I've been hung up on. There's this program I got from my mom, and it'll take care of itself. Don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
And it got me into like that.
Right. Maddie's very similar. I have siblings that are in this very similar. Yeah, that's a tough one, because I'm just not programmed like that.
Yeah.
And I see the beauty in it though. Like I always tell Maddie, she's like so forgetful on things, on so many things. And I'm just like, I tell her, I'm like, it's kind of beautiful though, because you're not thinking about shit that's not even happening yet. So more present than I am, because you're constantly just in the is. But because of that, you're also forgetting all this shit that we should be doing. And the things that you aren't saying is also affecting all these people in your life because you just don't, that's not even how your brain works. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's so many ways you can go about this. Yeah, I just know for me that when I stop stressing about it is actually when my money issues are way better. But I think that's my blocks. I always think that I don't have enough. And when I thought I didn't have enough, it was true. I didn't have enough. And the times that I actually thought that what I had is perfectly fine. And if I had this for the rest of my life, I would be fully happy. That's when more abundance and money started flowing in. And it never really made sense to me. And I mean, it does in this moment. It makes sense. Because that's essentially what manifesting is. But um, I think it's personable to every person. You know, my block was because I was stressed around it, and that I always believed that I never had enough. And so getting past that block was really believing that I had enough. And you can't trick your mind into thinking that too. You can't be like, oh, I have enough money. I truly felt it, you know. I felt it so deep that I knew if I lost my properties or any of the things that I own, that I would be fine and I would have everything I needed still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the money thing for me has been really interesting to go into, because I think we can really get caught up in that, the whole like the idea of manifesting,
Right.
and when I've been doing the work around it, it's what is blocking you from having financial freedom.
Mhm.
And for me, it's been showing up responsibly. I'm still not there. I'm still working on this aspect of myself where I need to show up more consistently, putting myself out there, doing things like this. So thank you. And I do co-host a podcast, so I do that at least once a week, but showing up more, getting more active on social media, putting myself out there more in more ways. And there's this part of me that just doesn't want to do the work, just thinks that it's all going to come to me. And I know that it will, but thinking from my mind that it's going to come without actually doing the work and taking the action for it to come to me is like missing half of the equation. It's
Right.
like, yeah, have that belief. That's beautiful. Be in that place of abundance. But you can't just sit and wait for good things to come to you. You've got to really go out and do the work to create in your life, to create them. And that's where I can feel I'm falling short. And
Mhm.
this part of me, I've done the work, so I see where it comes from. It stems from my mother. She did everything for me when I was a kid, and that created a certain level of entitlement,
Mhm.
and just this expectation that things are going to be done for me. And I remember this one memory when I've done the work around this that comes up, and I think I was around 3, maybe 4 years old, and I'd learned how to wipe my own ass on the toilet. And I remember sitting there and I was like, Mom, will you wipe my bum? And she's like, no, you know how to do it. And I was like, please. And I begged and begged and begged. And then eventually she came over and wiped it for me. And that might seem stupid, but what that is the energy that's in there of like,
Mhm.
I know that if I don't want to do something, I can just ask my parent and eventually they'll do it. And so
Mhm.
I've actually had to create some isolation from them,
Mhm.
because there's the last few years this propensity to just fall back on them and be like, hey, can you help me out? I'm struggling right now. And that's beautiful to have that relationship with our parents. But ultimately, if we want to like grow and elevate and evolve,
Right.
and really become a a co-creator, a master of our own lives. We have to surrender and evolve out of the parent-child relationship that we have with our parents. I'm 30 years old now. I'm not a child. I don't need I shouldn't need my parents taking care of me. And that's where I've been doing this work on, of this expectation that it's just going to come to me. It's going to come to me, and it will come to me, but I've got to do the work to get it, to be in that energetic flow with the universe of like, I'm showing up, I'm doing this stuff, I'm putting myself out there, I'm spreading my name from a good place of love. And in that, the universe will reflect the same energy. But when I'm sat waiting for the universe to come wipe my ass for me and bring me my dinner, the universe is like, yo, you got some growing up to do, son.
Yeah, well, you just described like such a healthy form of isolation, that you need to isolate yourself from certain people in your life to get through blockages and things that are holding you back in life. Yeah, that's just that. It shows like how there's so many aspects to it, and that there's so many pros to isolation, but there's so many cons to it too, that it's so common. The cons are so common too, for men to just be alone in it, instead of realizing that they can share the burden, not lone wolf it. The lone wolfing is like such a common practice that men tend to do. I mean, I just think about how many people that have the friends, which is very rare too. I think there's a statistic out too about how there's like 1960, 27% of Americans felt that they had 3 or fewer close friends. And now in 2021, that has increased to 49%. And when I think about those close friends, which is not very many, I also think about, okay, yeah, you have those close friends, but how close are they? How much have you shown of yourself to them? Because
And
if
what
you
do you
haven't,
think is driving those numbers?
it's well, it's definitely social media, because
For sure.
things that have taken us away from being out in nature, and it's like it's funny because it was harder back in the day essentially to connect with people, you would think, because of all the technology like disadvantages they had. You couldn't just ring somebody up. You had to go walk down the block to go hang out with somebody, but they still had more friends than we do now, that you can call them, and it just shows how disconnected we are with ourselves because of that. Those healthy forms of isolation, you were isolating yourself back in the day with but there was a lot more healthy boundaries around it, because you were forcing yourself to sit with yourself and actually like feel the things that are coming up. Now when you sit with yourself, you have your phone in front of you, you have these items like in your life that you're by yourself, but you're not by yourself. You're surrounded by the world that
There's the
is
World Wide Web at your
right.
fingertips, and all these people you can message and call. And that's why I love whenever I go camping or hiking. I love it when there's no phone service. I love it because then it's like, it's you. That is the isolation. It's like, yeah, now you're on your own. You get to fully detach and there's no choice. But we're in this interesting time where it's like we have all this connectivity through the technology that we have, but we haven't yet. It's like the technology is advanced, but our consciousness hasn't matched the same level as the advancement in order to use it in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
So we're still in this. It's playing its part, The connectivity is allowing everyone to connect around the globe. And now, without technology, I wouldn't have found my mentor. And my mentor isn't going to be the same person that maybe you or Barry down the street needs. So the connectivity allows the right people to connect together, which allows so we're in this really interesting space where humanity is evolving. The level of
Definitely.
consciousness
Yeah.
is rising for sure.
Hmm.
And part of the reason is because of the
Social
social
media.
media,
Yeah, definitely.
the internet, all of it is playing a part. But we're
Right.
still in this weird flow where it's like
Yeah.
we're not quite evolved enough to see how like devolved we are.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it's an interesting time to live in that regard.
Yeah. I would ask people when they're on their phone, what is the algorithm playing to you? What is like popping up on your feed when you're scrolling through the reels or doing the TikToks? Like what's popping up for you? It'll give you a good insight of like what you truly care about. And it's kind of funny because I have my shadow consciousness page and my normal page. And when I would go through reels, I would see what would be on my normal page and the reels that pop up versus versus my shadow consciousness page. And now when I get on Instagram, even though I try not to, I usually am actually on my shadow consciousness page because I'm surrounding myself with a lot better things that people have to say. You know, I'm actually listening and hearing what people have to say versus I don't know, watching just stupid YouTubers
Stupid
go.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, just dumb, like mindless stuff. But that's the
I've
thing. That's like
started.
that's the easy stuff though too. Like, cause that doesn't take any of my brain. You know, it
Yeah.
doesn't take any of my brain to watch somebody like punch somebody. Like,
You're like, whoa, cool, knocked him
right?
out.
Yeah, exactly.
I've started really being extra conscious with my social media consumption because
Mm,
I do find myself getting lost in it all the time.
mhm. Yeah.
And I've been doing this now for maybe a month, like really purging. Why am I following this person?
Mm,
What is the purpose behind me following them? And if it's not adding any value in my life or there isn't a strong connection, I think it's okay to let that go.
mm,
And I'm trying to just cultivate my social media in terms of what I'm consuming is the things that I'm interested in, people that inspire me, people that
mm,
maybe they have something that I'm looking to get. Like I'm really into movement, and so I follow a lot of movement people because they have something, they have a
right.
freedom in the body which I currently don't possess, which I'm working towards.
Mm,
And I obviously follow a lot of people in the mental emotional health world and the spiritual world to keep update with them. But it's interesting to have those two where you've got like your work passion
right.
versus your old account, and whether one day you'll drop one or the other, and it'll just
Yeah.
be like, oh, actually this is more me.
Yeah.
You know, this
Yeah.
is more who I am and what I wanna be.
And I definitely see myself getting to that point. Um, it was hard for me to just even create an account on my just pretty much take over my old account and say like this is my new one because um, I had so much resistance towards people like, and I know your partner is going to relate a lot to this, but so much resistance to people didn't subscribe to that. You know, they didn't subscribe to me sharing myself. They subscribed to my old self of I don't know, posting pictures about I don't know, random shit. Now my old page is just pretty much posts about me and my family, and that's about all you get. And then this new page is my soul, you know, which is what
And
I
I
hope people will want, you know. And
yeah
that's why, and it's so, and but that was the nice thing about starting over essentially was because I know that the people that do follow me are the ones that really just want to be a part of my soul. Yeah. Be a part of what's
what it is
gonna
that you're
keep me.
creating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, because we wear so many masks in so many
Mhm.
ways. And the question that comes down to is, what is it about what fear of judgment is there about somebody thinking that, oh, I didn't sign up for this
Right.
in that transition?
Yeah.
Like it's okay. Like, this is a video I know you've commented on that I've made in the past of like, I do care what other people think. I don't want to care,
Mm-hmm.
but I do care about what other people think. And why is it that we all care about what other people think? Where did we learn that?
Right.
Because ultimately, who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
Oh, this person doesn't like you? Okay, great. That's where I want to get to, is that place
Yeah.
of like, yeah, I don't give a fuck, but I
Right.
still do give a fuck. And that's
Yeah,
okay.
because we're wired for connection, you know. That's as much as we can do all the inner soul work, we are here for connection, you know. What the hell would be the point of life if you just lived here alone, you know, and just sat with yourself? You're
One
doing
would
that,
have.
you're doing those things so that you can come to with your full authentic self and meet another authentic soul and share that light with each other. So,
That, or you'd connect to the nature, the universe, get
right.
beyond
But
the self,
yeah,
the small self. And one of the tenets for survival is definitely connection, but we have this skewed idea that we need that connection from a human. The
mm,
connection that we need is just connection, whether that's
right.
to self, whether
Mm,
that's to nature, an animal. We do need connection because everything in the universe does revolve around like reflection and connection,
right.
but it doesn't necessarily mean we need a human. We can just be super
Just
connected to our soul.
another soul
Yeah.
because it just, I mean, the trees have their own life and just like animals do, you know, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
all evolving and it's all connected.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong. Like, I'm not at a place where I can connect with trees. I'm not there yet. I have done on mushrooms for sure. I have had those experiences where I can feel that me
Yeah.
and this tree are having a conversation now and saying, "What's up?" Not through actual language, but through some energetic
Yeah.
communication. I can feel that. But in my waking state reality, I'm not there yet,
Yeah.
and that's okay. That's okay to get our connection from people, but to always remember and know that it's not the only place, and the only place we really need to be connected is ourselves.
Right.
And once we have that, then that opens the door for true connection with others.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's that false self of like their false sense of connection too. And that's what most people live in, is that me and my partner are connected, you know. But how much of your soul are you showing them? And a lot of times almost every time it's not 100%. That
Yeah.
ego is always there. That side is always there. And so how much are you actually connected to them?
And this comes back to what we were speaking about at the beginning of like when we hold these parts of ourselves in, when we hold in the stress and we hold in maybe
Right.
the frustration or the fear or the whatever it is, the guilt, the shame, I don't want to share this with you because I'm ashamed of what you might
Mhm.
think of me.
Yeah.
When we hold all of that in, then the only way that we're connecting is through a very small little narrow window.
Right.
I had this recent conversation with one of my parents. I was like, I want to have an authentic connection, and that means everything doesn't have to be, oh, it's all great and
Mhm.
fine. It's like,
Yeah.
no, things can be shitty. Like,
Right.
I value when I go, hey, how you doing? And someone goes, I'm having a really hard day. I'm
Mhm.
like, fuck yeah, let's talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Why? What's going on? I love that.
Or just let me just sit with you then.
Yeah,
I'll sit with
cool.
you in this tough day, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Well, we're at time, Danny. I appreciate you getting on. This is such a good conversation, and you're just a ball of light. And I just enjoy talking to you all the time. Um, I'm gonna link Danny's socials at the bottom. Follow him, listen to his stuff. It's all great. It's all truth, and it's beautiful.
Well, thank you for having me on. Thank you for your friendship. And thank you for the work that you're doing. Right back at you. Because I know it's helping people, it's changing lives, and we're all playing a part in this grand thing we get to call life here on planet Earth. So let's go. Thanks for having me on. And anytime you want me back, we can jump on the mics again.
Yeah.